This may have been the saddest few hours of wrestling I have seen in my life. Welcome back to another review. Today we're looking at this week's episode of Raw. So let's get into it. Jey Uso comes out to the ring to talk about his upcoming match against bisexual Undertaker at Backlash. Now Damien Priest feels kind of threatened, so he comes out to defend himself. Now this will be Damien Priest's first title defense, which he brings up by telling Jey Uso he's just the first in the line that the machine is going to feed him. Now, Damien Priest, you are not Roman Reigns. I have a feeling that line is not very long. Jey claps back by pointing out the only reason why Damien's the leader of the Judgement Day is because Mommy got hurt, which I 100% agree with. Speaking of injuries in the Judgement Day, Dominic got injured too. So Judgement Day has taken a huge hit, especially with Finn not even being here. So really the only functioning members of Judgement Day on this episode of Raw were Damien Priest and JD McDonough. And I love JD McDonough, but if you're Damien Priest, that's probably the last person you want to be stuck with. Good segment, thumbs up. Next, we get into the World Tag Team Championship match. I was a little confused why we were doing this match so early. Like, we just decided DIY was number one contenders last week. You know, you could space it out a bit, give us a week of story. But putting that aside, this match is exactly what you'd think. It was a ton of fun. And at times, actually got me scared that the Awesome Truth weren't going to retain here. Because going into it, I was like, they're obviously going to win. One, they're the very first team to get these new updated titles. And two, this is only their second defense. But then they started getting whooped. And then I put my sports glasses on. And I thought to myself, yeah, these guys are pretty old. It would make total sense if DIY beat them. And it got even worse because I had flashbacks. Flashbacks to WrestleMania 32, where Zack Ryder won the Intercontinental title in a ladder match and at WrestleMania. And then he immediately lost it after. To who? The Miz. I had fear karma had came back 8 years later. They gave me a little heart attack, but fortunately they pulled through and won. And interestingly, Tommaso Ciampa didn't shake their hands after. I really hope this doesn't mean we're splitting up the Regeneration X. That whole faction had so much more entertaining to do. But besides that, I give this whole thing a thumbs up. Then, here's what I was really excited for. We got the return of the ring general, Gunther. And it was pretty funny not to see him, dressed out in a whole suit or like a general uniform. He was just in like a normal sweatshirt. He goes over how he took some time to digest his loss by Sami at Mania and how he's thankful because now instead of being the hunted, he's become the hunter. Which, if you ask me, is absolutely terrifying. Like, if you're Damien Priest, the last person I would want coming after me would be Gunther. But fortunately for all the current champions, they don't have to worry about Gunther for a little bit at least, because he's going to be preoccupied with the King of the Ring tournament, which I thought we completely abandoned. But after doing some research on Wikipedia, I found that for the past 22 years or so, the tournament comes around once every 3 years or so. So this actually makes sense. They used to do it like every year from 91 to like 2002, but that was definitely the golden age. When you have winners like Xavier Woods and Baron Corbin, I guess you kind of let it go for a bit. No hate to those guys, but it's kind of a step down from Kurt Angle, Brock Lesnar, and Stone Cold Steve Austin, Speaking of Xavier Woods, he interrupts Imperium with Kofi to declare his spot in the King of the Ring tournament as well. Now, I know I just kind of talked trash about Xavier Woods, but he is a former winner. So that means so far we have Gunther and a former winner in this tournament, which sounds pretty good to me. This whole thing led into a tag match, which I didn't pay super close attention to because as I was watching this, I got the news that Cameron Grimes got released by WWE, which I'm not going to get super into. It's just a really sad situation, especially when it's someone who worked so hard and never got a real chance. And it was even sadder because he put out a video on social media and you can just tell how emotionally torn apart he is. So I really wish the best for him. And then that same feeling continued because after Imperium lost, Ludwig turned on Giovanni Vinci, kicking him out of Imperium. So that could mean either two things. One, he's going back to NXT, or two, he's getting released as well, which would be terrible. But that real world speculation and stuff had nothing to do with the actual segment, which I give a thumbs up. And then the sad times kept rolling because of the next two segments. The first one being a promo between Shaemus and Drew McIntyre. Now look, these two are friends, but like any real friendship, they get into arguments every once in a while. But this one just got so personal. Drew McIntyre told Shaemus before he left it was banger after banger after banger. And then after he got back, it's only been burger after burger after burger. He's not that big, okay? Plus, while I was watching his match, I thought to myself, what would hurt more? A white noise off the top rope by a skinny lean Shaemus, or a white noise off the top rope by a thick Shaemus? You see what I'm saying? It's not that big of a deal, okay? And then after that, no one wants to see Otis sad, right? Chad Gable brought everyone from the Alpha Academy out into the ring and basically told them how much of a failure they all were. And that hurt, but if I want Perk Gable, sacrifices need to be made. Now, this whole thing sounds great because I have a perfect vision for how it should play out. Chad Gable is going to have an opportunity for the Intercontinental title, and then Alpha Academy is going to accidentally screw it up. Chad Gable is going to be so pissed off that he's going to bring in some new members into the Academy. I'm talking the Creed brothers. You can't tell me that won't be the most menacing group in WWE. I give these two sad segments a thumbs up. After that, we went backstage before our tag match between Andrade and Ricochet versus JD and Santos Escobar. And it was Ricochet arguing with who else but Dominic Mysterio. And I love Dominic because Ricochet roasted him and then walked off, and then Dominic responded by saying, "Yeah, you better run, Ricochet," in like a stupid childish voice. He is so pathetic and it's hilarious. And then he ran into Liv Morgan. Now look, he's clearly mad at her for injuring Mommy, right? But if it was me and I saw Liv Morgan look at me like that, I would have folded it immediately. I'm just being real. Andrade and Ricochet picked up the win in a pretty good contest, but what was really interesting is what happened after the match. Damien came in and pretty much easily destroyed both of them, which I really like that we're making Damien Priest look strong, because I guess the problem I had with him becoming champion was that he just seemed too weak. Like weeks before WrestleMania, he was struggling to beat R-Truth, okay? So I'm really happy we're heading in this direction. Give it a thumbs up. And finally, it was main event time, where we would be deciding the new women's world champion in a battle royal. Now, trust me, I like men as much as the next guy, but I feel like this year's women's Royal Rumble was way better than the men's. So although I thought this was kind of an odd way to decide the next champion, I knew these women were extremely capable of pulling it off. I had high hopes this would be a banger, and it was. And just like the last match, we started off backstage, where it was just a bunch of chaos with all the women going at each other. There was one point where I thought Nia Jax was fighting Adam Pearce, but that was just because Liv Morgan is so small I couldn't see her. First of all, I'm so happy for Maxine. After all the hate she was getting, I'm so happy she actually had a really good performance. She even had this pretty perfect segment with Nia Jax, who, by the way, had the greatest performance in this match. She's like the Brock Lesnar of the women's division. That elimination she scored on Ivy Nile by slamming her into the ring post looks so cool. What else did I like? Chelsea Green. There was this part where she got eliminated, but all the refs didn't see it because they were too busy helping Becky outside. So she just went back in. I don't think I've ever seen something like that in a battle royal, but it makes so much sense. However, the ending of this match was pretty controversial. And for me, it's a bit so-and-so. A lot of people online wanted Liv Morgan to win this. And trust me, I want her to be champion by the time Rhea Ripley comes back so they can have their feud. But that doesn't mean she has to be champion now. I think it would be even more special if she beats Becky on a one-on-one match for the belt. That would just make her look stronger, I think, than a battle royal. I guess that doesn't really make sense because a battle royal has more people. But then that leaves us Nia Jax, who... yeah, I feel like we should have gave it to Nia Jax, especially of how entertaining she was here. However, I don't think Becky is a terrible pick. She was Rhea's last opponent at WrestleMania, so you can make the presumption that she was Rhea's toughest opponent, which would mean her winning here kind of makes sense. So I'm not bothered too much by the outcome. It was still a really great match. Amazing. I give it 2 thumbs up. Anyways, that was the show. I really appreciate you watching. I hope you have a great day and follow for